exactly divides p minus 1. So you get a large and safe prime. Next, you will have h. H you will choose randomly from this set 2 to p minus 2. Usually h is chosen as 2. And then you'll compute your generator, which is g is equal to h to the power p minus 1 by q mod p. Actually, what happens that you have zp star, right? Zp star is your multiplicative cyclic group. This is all for people who know group theory. Actually, group theory is an entirely different concept, and it will require another session if I need to cover that. So if you know group theory, that's great. Otherwise, you can just mute me and then skip. So you have ZP star, and G here will be your generator that will give you a subspace from ZP star. So ZP star is your parent space, and G will be your generator of a subspace of this. That's how it works. And like I said, Q should be, so to be Pauling-Hellman algorithm safe, this N and L, how many bits, how long should be Q, how long P should be. N and L is, you have these defined values. These are the ones that are usually used in your actual implementations. So this is actually defined by your FIPS and NIST standards. Okay. Anyway, these are the nitty-gritty details, but main I'll be explaining again why you need this discrete log problem. Okay. Okay. So note now, okay. So I, as a user, I need to sign something. So that means I need to generate a public key and a private key. Private key for my signature algorithms. Public key, I'll distribute it so that anyone can verify my signatures. Okay. What I do now is I select X. Okay. SK here stands for secret key. PK here stands for public key. So SK secret key will be your X, which is in the set 1 to Q minus 1. Now I'll compute public key as Y is equal to G to the power X mod P, some value Y. Y will be distributed. So Y is public, X is secret. Now comes the main magic. Why I went through this discrete log problem was that, remember, when you have such a setting and you are given H here is your Y. I'll write this here side by side. When I was discussing, I had written G to the power X equal to H. I said that I give you H, I give you G, find out X for me. How many times should I multiply G with itself to get this H? And in my case, I'm setting this H as my public key, X as my secret key. Since your discrete log problem is shown to be hard, given, of course, criteria, remember, discrete log is not always hard. You need to set your P's and Q's, which is why we have this entire parameter section over here, which is important. You have standards that tell you how many bits you should have. So given all those sets, given all these parameters, we can now say that yes, discrete log will be hard in this scenario. Why? Because the attacker now knows this public. The attacker also knows this. Kirchhoff's principle tells you that, okay, everything should be public except your private keys. So everything's public, but the attacker does not know X. If the attacker could break X, the attacker could then sign on my behalf, basically impersonating me. I don't want that. So therefore, I use a known hard mathematical problem, and I use the mathematics of it to define my crypto system. So, which also explains when in the beginning I said that asymmetric key cryptography are based on the intractability of certain mathematical problems. Intractability here meaning the hardness. Is it too hard to, how many resources I need to use to break it? So, okay, cool. So now when I have my public and private keys, So let's move on to how do I generate a signature. So you as a user, you have your public, you've set your public key you've distributed, you have your secret key X over here. Cool. So now my algorithm will go as, first I'll choose a random K in this set, 1 to Q minus 1. R is, yeah, so you will notice one thing before so that people don't have a confusion. So you'll notice that, okay, there's this H belongs to this set, K belongs to this set, X belongs to this set. I mean, why do we need all this? Again, group theory, which is itself a concept, itself a subject in itself. So like, just bear with me. These are some details. Like, you can just think of them as algorithmic details, but if you don't know group theory, modular theory, that's okay. Nothing to worry about. Okay, do something now. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Cool. Okay. So first, in my signature algorithm, I'll first choose K belonging in this set, and then this K will be used for generating my random number. So R I'll choose as G to the bar K mod P. Mod P mod, yeah, mod P mod P, yeah. Now, if R is 0, I'll try again with another K. You don't want a 0 randomness to come, otherwise every, or public and private key will be 1. Everything will be 1 1 1 1 1. So you wouldn't want that. And next you will compute S, K inverse. H is your hash of your message M plus XR. X is your private key. R is your, what I computed before, R here. And I get back S. Again, if S is 0, try again with another K. I'll again have to repeat my cycle. Finally, my signature I get is R and S. Now, so you did this signature, you send it to me, and now I want to verify it. How do I do it? First, these are a few things I need to ensure that, okay, R and S are strictly less than Q. Next, I should put this a little above. Maybe, yeah. Okay. Next, I'll compute that, okay, I'll first be, so R and S I know. So from S, I do S inverse mod Q. And then I compute U1, which is hash of the message, W, hash of M, W mod Q. U2 will be RW mod Q. Sorry, it's a little messy over here. RW mod Q. Cool. And then I get back V. V is G to the bar U1, Y. Y is my public key. Y to the bar U2, mod P, mod Q. And I state that, and remember my signature had 2 parts, R and S. I used up S to do all my calculations of here. Oh, of course, I used up R as well here. Now I'm saying that if V equals R, that means it's valid. And when you're dealing with cryptographic algorithms, there's a concept called correctness of an algorithm. So you should, just because somebody gave you an algorithm and said that, okay, like I'm saying in the verification stage, I'm saying that, okay, V is equal to R, then you say that this is a valid signature. No, you should also verify the correctness of this algorithm. Why is this algorithm actually working? So we'll see that. Okay. So I'll go step by step as, okay. So what was my verification? Okay. So I'll see, okay. S is K inverse hash of M plus XR mod Q. This we got from our signing algorithm, right? K inverse. So I put it back to the left-hand side. S, I take it, K inverse should jump here. S should jump here as S inverse. So K is equal to, I can write it as hash of M S inverse plus XR S inverse. Okay. Also, if you'll note, okay, yeah, S inverse is your W here. So hash of M W, S inverse, I'm replacing it by W basically. XR W, okay. Now I have g to the power k. G to the power k, remember, was r. I'll just scroll back. R is g to the power k. I'd already said this. And R is public, so you can easily see that, okay. So this is your R. R is g to the power k. Okay, so k, I'll replace it with this hash of mw, g to the power x rw, and g to the power x is y, your public key. So okay, g to the power hash of mw, y to the power rw, and if I go back again, I'll clear these. Yeah, if I go back again, these values over here, these were my u1 and u2, which I'm plugging it here in g to the power u1, y to the power u2, and this is basically what I get. So I'm saying, so at the end, what I got, that okay, r is g to the power k. I got back this expression, which is basically v, and therefore this r is equal to v. This shows that okay, if I go by these steps, and if I don't get v equals r, that means signature is not valid. And that means these steps over here, they all correlate, they match, and they work properly. That's what is called the correctness of DSA, or any cryptographic algorithm, the correctness. Okay. So long story short, for people who do not know group theory, for people who, for this was very long, but main thing you should know that okay, there's a discrete log problem. We know this is hard, and like I said, g to the power x is equal to h. So now since I got a hard thing, I know that okay, if I give this as public to the attacker, this is public to the attacker will not be able to find out this x, and attacker will cry. Okay, so that's the crux of your DSA. Cool. Oh yeah, so there's an attack actually, not on DSA. We will cover in maybe the next session, elliptic curve cryptography. So you will see that it's similar thing, same hard problem and everything. In case of, instead of finite fields, we now have elliptic curves. So elliptic curve DSA, and the algorithm also runs the same. What actually Sony's PlayStation, what the Sony's software developers did, here you have k, right? This k, you should keep on changing this k, but they just plugged in one single value of k, and they were generating their public key, private key, and giving the Sony signature. So failover, they actually showed that since they used k so many times, it's actually, they could analyze all the signatures together, and they could see that oh, there's a pattern here, and that's how they got back your k. So another attack on most cryptographic systems is that if your randomness is uniform, it's no longer random, right? If your randomness, you don't, what's random if you are constant in a way? So even if you should also keep on changing your randomness as well. Okay. So next algorithm I'll be covering is RSA. No, this is not something signature algorithm. This is Rivest, Shamir, Edelman, three scientists who had developed this algorithm, still used to date. And unlike your DSA algorithm, this is actually very short and simple. What is the hard problem over here? Hard problem, remember, because I need a hard problem so that given all public parameters, the attacker will not be able to figure out my private key. That's why I need to first decide on my hard problem. So what's hard? What's the hard problem? Prime factorization. Okay, so what's this? So basically I'm choosing two primes, P and Q, and I'm setting N is equal to PQ. And okay, this is again for people who know group theory, modular theory. So you'll know that this is a Euler's torsion function. So phi of n gives me P minus 1 into Q minus 1. Euler's torsion function basically tells you that, okay, how many numbers are co-prime to n? Co-prime to n. So if you know that n has prime factors, you can easily write it as p minus 1, q minus 1. Now you choose E that is co-prime to Euler's torsion function, and not function, is co-prime to phi of n. And I'll compute D such that ED is congruent to 1 modulo phi of n. Basically, I'm computing E inverse over here. And why I need this Euler's okay. Okay, I'll say this that first I'll say this that okay, n over here, and E over here is your public key, D is your secret key. To make things simpler, basically I'm saying that ED is congruent to 1 modulo phi of n, or you could just say that D is E inverse. Okay. Now I'm saying that, and also you know n, right? N. So the hard problem here is that if you get to know what the prime factors are, P and Q, you can easily compute E inverse. So that's basically the hard problem. If you don't understand these entire huge massive details, you can just simply remember that prime factorization n, factor it out into your prime factors. If I can do that, I can calculate E inverse. E and n are public, D is secret. So if I get E inverse, I'm basically getting D, which I don't want because it is my secret key. Need to keep it secret. Okay, and now voila. Signing algorithm done in one line is you take your message M. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Yeah. Take your message M, raise it to the power D, modulo N. D is secret key. So that's why in signing algorithm, using my secret key. In the verification part, I'll be on this signature, I'll be doing E. So sigma to the power E, I know that ED is 1. So I just expand it as M to the power D, E, and I get back M. So that's how, and if I get back M again, which is the message I got with my signature, that means it's a valid signature. This algorithm you will often see in textbooks, which is wrong actually. Why I'll be telling you? Because, okay. So simple hack to this one is, attacker has public key E and N, right? So attacker will choose some X belongs to 1 to N minus 1. If you don't want to, we can just skip out this set thing. Just, it's important, but if you don't know group theory, that's okay. Just choose some X. Now I'll do Y is equal to X to the power E. And now I'll do this clever hack. I'll say, okay, X is my signature, Y is my message. Now, why do you think this will run? Because in your verification algorithm, you're doing that the signature, you will raise it to exponent E. So I'm doing, okay, signature to the exponent E, and X is set as your signature, so X to the power E, and I've already set it as Y, which is my message. So that is my message. You not only you don't, your aim should be that the attacker should not forge. This is called as a forgery attack. Attacker should not forge your signature on a message. Also, it should not even, like, for any random message, when it does not have your any private key and all, even for any random message, why should it be able to give a valid signature? Then maybe it will pass through the system, and that's not what we want. So point to be noted, textbook RSA is not secure. Instead, the correct RSA algorithm is hashed RSA signature. So only difference is here that you had this entire hard problem prime factorization, everything's same, but now I have my cryptographic hash function H. And remember, in the digital signatures, I was telling that hash is basically, it takes messages can be of arbitrary length. And mathematically, we define it as 0, 1, binary messages, star. People who code in Python and all, they'll know regex. And so 0, 1 star is like any length, arbitrary length messages. Hash boils it down to some fixed length, say k. K. K length binary message. Okay. And everything same, except now you'll notice that I'm using hash of m, hash of m. Everything is hash of m. I'll probably leave it as an exercise for you. Just write this, write what I had written, textbook RSA's algorithm side by side, and the attack here. Write these two side by side, and you'll see then that it's no longer, the attack no longer works. A hint here would be that at the end you need the hash of the message, not just the message. In the previous textbook RSA algorithm, I had m here, but now I need hash of m, not just m, for the signature to be valid. So I'll leave this as an exercise. Otherwise, we can always discuss it later. Okay. Oh, so RSA is pretty neat, pretty concise, and it's also pretty versatile. So why? Because you can use the same thing for encryption and decryption as well. The main fundamental you should get here, always try to understand that, okay, when you have a crypto system, what are the operations that should be exclusively for the user, and what are the operations that can be public. So in case of signatures, your signing is, maybe I should make a chart over here. Okay. So when I am signing, okay, what is private is your signature generation. You don't want anyone else to forge your signature and thereby impersonate you. Extremely sorry for my bad handwriting.
I'm not even able to see it.
I think color is not. Try again.
Maybe I'll just try black. Now?
No. Should change it to white color.
Oh, you can't see anything.
No. Do you see?
Now?
No.
Oh, so all this while I was drawing annotations, no one was able to see.
No. That was we saw that one. This one now. You are you are writing impersonation that is not visible. Maybe it is getting impersonated.
Okay. I'll
Try now.
Black. Okay. Now?
It's coming now. Yep.
Okay. Cool. My system has not been hacked. Okay. Okay. So signatures. So when I'm doing signatures, what is private, what is exclusive to the user is signature generation. I don't want anyone to forge my signature and claim that that person is me. Signature generation. Okay. What's public is verifying it. Public. I can verify. Verify. Okay. Now, when I'm doing encryption and decryption, what should be public, what should be private? Okay. So now when I'm sending a message to someone, I want, or view it this way, that when I receive a message, I want anyone to be able to do it. Right? Encryption, decryption can happen in both scenarios. It can be symmetric. So like we both have keys. So then we have to first exchange those keys, agree upon a set of keys, and either we can do that. So in that case, both encryption and decryption will be private because no one else has access to your key. If I talk about asymmetric encryption and decryption, so then I'll want that whenever I receive messages, people should be able to do it publicly. So asymmetric encryption. So what's private, what's public? So what's public is generation of the ciphertext. So basically encryption, right? What's private is decryption of the ciphertext. Why do you think this is so? Because I don't, somebody encrypted using the public key, because that's easy. I distributed my public key and anyone can just take that, because that's public, so anyone can take that key and can encrypt it. Cool. But I only want, but if that message is only intended for me, only I should read it, right? So then that decryption part, changing the ciphertext to a human readable form, should be only be done by me. Again, exclusive to the user. So now I'll show you how RSA can be used for signature and for asymmetric encryption. Only thing you have to do is reverse the operation. So yeah, how do you do this reverse, and why is this by the why you can do it in a reverse order? Because this is actually, this is commutative, right? Because my main thing is ed equals 1. I can choose out of, I have two numbers and I know when I'm multiplying it by under group multiplication, I am getting 1. Sorry, modular multiplication, I'm getting 1. So I can choose any one of them as my private key, any one of them as my secret key. So how I do this is, you know that signature generation is private and your decryption should be private. So now my signature generation will help me to do decryption. Verification algorithm will help me to do encryption. So let's just give a run through over here. Yeah, okay. So now say, verification E is public. So instead of this, I have hash of the message to the power T modulo N. Okay. This is my encryption. I have encrypted my message, became a ciphertext. Now you with your private key, what you do is, say this is some C ciphertext. You take this ciphertext C and you raise it to the power D, right? Because this is your D. I raised it to the power D. What I'm getting back, hash of message to ciphertext is hash of message to the power E. I'm raising this whole thing to the power D and ta-da, I get it. Hash of message to the power ED. ED I know is 1. I get back my hash of message. Actually I did, okay. This is a little wrong because I don't want my hash of message. I want my plain text actually. I want my plain text back. Okay, sorry for that. No hash at all. I want my plain text back. So we, so that's how we know that yes. So RSA, that's why RSA can be used for, RSA is used not only as a digital signature standard, but also as an encryption and decryption standard. Okay. Should I be continuing or?
I think we can stop here. DHKE and ECC, we can continue next session. Sam, please.
Yeah.
Up to you.
Actually, if everyone is okay, you can continue for another like 15-20 minutes. Because we have a lot more to cover, right?
Yeah.
We thought we'll finish this, then applications, then limitations.
Because it is the attendees, trainees may feel overwhelming. So it is a logical. It is a logical stop here. We are aware. We can open for 15 minutes for Q&A and they can ask question.
Correct.
Make sure that feel at home ease. Then but new concept. I don't think this is correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. Let's do that.
Yes, audience.
Pradeep, are you here?
Any question? Thanks, Alo. It's a great session. The flow was amazing, and then it's very good. easy to follow. Thank you.
Except I think it was too theoretical, so I'm really sorry, everyone. But that's what crypto is. It's all math.
It is occupational hazard. We can't do anything. If you chose cryptography, you can't escape, right? Always prime number, discrete log, and mod operators. The standard mod function, and then this mod is something which we have to understand clearly. Really amazing stuff, Alo. It's well arranged.
So also, in case for people who weren't comfortable with discrete log and prime factorization, if you're interested, I'd suggest first please go through group theory. Maybe you'll find lots of resources on the internet that give you these theorems and pretty interesting videos as well. Khan Academy also, I think, has good videos on that score. So you could first visit those, and then these will be cakewalk then.
Yeah, group theory is the basic here, right? G star equal to.
In both DSA and RSA, we had group theory.
And is the lattice is also part of this group theory, or is it different? Hello?
Lattice is different.
Lattice.
Lattice is like way more complicated. More math. But since of course, since it has more math and it's more complex, it also gives you very secure systems. Even like, for instance, in the research I do, there's post-quantum crypto, right? So the attacker does not have quantum resources, has quantum resources, but I don't. That's basically my research, that, okay, algorithms are still quantum safe. So those algorithms that use lattices are actually pretty strong. But yes, it's complex. It's difficult to understand. It's difficult to, because you need to understand to find those vulnerabilities. So it does take time, but those are like pretty strong lattices.
Sam, I think we can create a WhatsApp group, because people can share because it is going to be ongoing learning experience. And so a special group who are mad at mathematics or mad of mathematics, they can share their findings, their breaking, all those things.
Okay.
Hacks, all those things. Yeah.
And so this is for the entire quantum cryptography vertical within QCI. We'll have this WhatsApp group. Okay.
Yep.
I think I have everything.
Hi, hello. This is Raj. I have a question. Actually, so I understand that group theory is kind of a requirement to understand the hard problem, and it's related, from the equations or solution point of view. But do you also see that it is also a requirement in general for cryptography as a whole, related to quantum cryptography?
A lot of, to understand quantum crypto, you first should understand classical crypto. A lot of crypto algorithms do use mod, because cryptographers love prime numbers and modulo functions. So yes, that
okay.
A nice prerequisite. Otherwise, yes, you'll be stuck in such points that there'll be a lot of, because like I was saying, here you have these X belongs to this set, K belongs to that set, and then you'll be thinking, why do I even need to bother about so many restrictions? So yeah, that'll be clear if you do group theory.
Oh, okay. Got you. So in theory, that is still applicable to quantum cryptography as well, right? That's what you mean. Okay. Thanks. Got you. Great session, by the way.
Thank you.
Hi, hello. This is Ustad. I had the same thing. Since I'm an 11th grade student, I don't know half the stuff related to group theory. So could you before the next session, maybe mention any specific requirements, so I could just read up on that and have an idea of what we would be talking about? Yeah. So and make it easier for me to follow along.
I should have done that actually before this session. When I was teaching, I then realized that, okay, this is actually not simple.
We should have pre-readings. Yeah.
Prerequisites, yeah, I should do this. But thanks.
It was a great session.
Thank you.
Sam will create a WhatsApp group, so we will communicate as a teaching assistant and trainers. We will communicate, what should be the prerequisites for next session. So this way you will have a chance to go through those contents prior to the sessions.
Right.
It's very short or small group, but all are focused, and then it is really, I enjoy, and I'm very confident that we are going to learn a lot of things in the next 5 sessions.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks to all for your
Zoom session group is 10 only. I've seen across all our communities, every time it's between 10 to 12, like that's when the learning happens.
Yeah, that's correct, Sam.
Okay.
That's really, really correct size.
Yeah.
Optimum size. Good. Anything else, team?
So next week we'll be covering, Alo, can you quickly show? Yeah.
So Diffie Hellman change. Yeah, again you have model over here. So modulo. ECC only, it's an overview. I need not go into much details because the electric curve is itself a subject.
Yeah.
And then curve 25519 kg will be covering for the kg key management. Latter half it becomes more interesting and less theoretical, so I suppose everyone will enjoy.
Correct.
Yeah, the following session will be focusing on commercial solutions and how a typical production system handles the key management. All those things will be covered in subsequent sessions, and other session will have a practical implementation as well.
Yeah, and the limitations has all the hacks also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that limitation I forgot about. What are the limitations of those algorithms, and how the from DES, from AES, the emergence, and then how RSA is better than AES and RSA, something like that we will discuss. Then we will reach where the quantum is going to take over, or it is a threat to all existing classical cryptography.
Right, right.
Then the flow will go to quantum cryptography in the 4th session.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Should we share this Rome page sort of thing?
We could make a copy of this and then
share. Yeah.
Yeah, we can have a copy for team members, such that with read-only permission, such that they can refer us. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And it will be added for we will add today's session and next session like that only we will add.
Right.
Yeah. For them that will be serve as the reference.
Got it.
Great.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Great session, Alam.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, team. You are a wonderful audience. Thanks for the day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you.
Thank you.